Welcome to the Battles That Made Us, Season 1, Episode 1, The Battle of Marathon.
In the early 5th century BC, the Persian Empire, an expansive dominion stretching from the Indian subcontinent to the Mediterranean, stood as a testament to imperial ambition and military prowess. Founded 2 generations prior by the indomitable Cyrus the Great, the empire at this juncture was governed by Darius, whose rule was marked by both consolidation and expansion. Darius was the mastermind behind the military campaigns that extended the empire's borders to their farthest reaches. His insatiable desire for conquest led to a relentless pursuit of new territories. Once subjugated, these lands were seamlessly integrated into the sophisticated Persian administrative system, a mechanism designed to maintain control over a vast and diverse population. Consequently, the Persian military was a cosmopolitan force, comprising various ethnic groups, each contributing unique martial skills. At the heart of this formidable army were the Medes and the Persians, whose military traditions formed the backbone of the empire's defense and expansion efforts. However, the dawn of the 5th century BC brought with it a series of challenges that would compel Darius to launch a military expedition against Greece, setting the stage for one of history's most famous conflicts. The Persian Empire exerted hegemonic control over the western littoral of Asia Minor, a region known as Ionia, modern-day Turkey, populated by Greek settlers whose allegiance to Persia was as reluctant as it was compulsory. While the Ionian Greeks were compelled to swear fealty to the Persian Empire and contribute troops to its vast armies, their loyalty was tepid at best, colored by a deep-seated resentment towards their foreign overlords. During Darius's campaign through the Danube Valley in 512 BC, an Ionian Greek contingent was tasked with securing a critical bridge along the supply line. As the Scythians, against whom Darius waged war, gained the supposed upper hand, the Persians were forced into a strategic retreat towards this crucial crossing, to the best of our knowledge based on ancient sources. Miltiades, an astute Greek commander, suggested demolishing the bridge to trap the Persians, leaving them at the mercy of the Scythians. However, his bold strategy was vetoed by other Ionian leaders, wary of the repercussions of such an act. Though Darius narrowly evaded capture, he vowed to exact revenge on Miltiades. Anticipating the wrath of the Persian king, Miltiades forsook his homeland in the Chersonese, today's Gallipoli Peninsula, and sought refuge in the city-state of Athens. Athens, having recently cast off the yoke of tyranny by deposing Hippias, witnessed the erstwhile ruler seeking asylum in Persia, where he ingratiated himself into the court of Darius. There, Miltiades immersed himself in the intricate and often treacherous currents of Athenian politics, a world as fraught with danger as the battlefield. Athens, in the wake of its liberation from the despotic rule of Hippias, had, under the visionary leadership of Cleisthenes, founded a republic, a democracy, in 510 BC, a bold experiment in governance that would resonate through the ages, impacting us today. This nascent democracy, however, was not without its detractors. A faction of the Athenian aristocracy, discomfited by the loss of their traditional privileges, petitioned the militaristic state of Sparta to intervene and depose Cleisthenes. Though Sparta briefly succeeded in displacing him, Cleisthenes, buoyed by the overwhelming support of the populace, ultimately repelled the Spartan forces. Fearing the inevitable Spartan reprisal, Cleisthenes contemplated the perilous gambit of seeking Persian aid, a move that would have entangled Athens in the complex web of imperial politics. Although Athens pragmatically conceded to Sparta's ascendancy in the political hierarchy of Greece, a clandestine faction, a conspiracy within the city, quietly inclined toward an alliance with Persia, viewing it as a counterbalance to Spartan dominance. In 499 BC, the Ionian city-states, chafing under Persian rule, ignited a rebellion and sought assistance from their Greek brethren. While Sparta and most other city-states demurred, Athens, compelled by both kinship and a nascent sense of Greek solidarity, dispatched 20 warships, with Eritrea contributing an additional 5. Just enough to poke the bear, not enough to be dangerous. In 498 BC, this fledgling alliance achieved a significant, albeit fleeting, victory with the burning of Sardis, one of the principal Persian cities in Asia Minor, an act that would kindle Darius's ire. As Darius quashed the Ionian revolt, his wrath turned towards Athens, the audacious city-state that had dared to support the insurgents. This, combined with the resurgence of his old adversary Miltiades within Athenian political circles, furnished Darius with dual motives to launch an invasion. In 492 BC, Darius dispatched a formidable force to subjugate Thrace, a campaign that culminated in the kingdom of Macedonia being compelled to acknowledge Persian sovereignty. This strategic maneuver positioned the Persians to invade Greece from the north. Yet fate intervened as a tempest decimated their fleet, necessitating a second, more determined assault. A minor tangent, the king of Macedonia, who bowed to the Persians and gave him an offering of earth and water, was none other than Alexander I, a direct lineage to Alexander the Great some generations later, who would go on to overthrow the Persian Empire. The irony. Darius, undeterred by this setback, orchestrated a renewed campaign in 490 BC, though some accounts suggest 491 BC, dispatching a formidable armada of, per Herodotus, 600 ships, laden with infantry and cavalry, with the intent of subjugating Athens and asserting Persian supremacy over Greece. Perhaps the very first land and sea D-Day type assault in ancient history, at least of this magnitude. Before commencing this grand campaign, Darius sent emissaries throughout Greece, demanding the unconditional submission of all city-states, a gesture both of intimidation and a prelude to war. As the expedition set sail, led by Darius's general Datis, the exiled Athenian tyrant Hippias accompanied the force, charged with fomenting unrest among discontented Athenians. In return, he was promised the governorship of Greece, under the aegis of the Persian Empire, should the invasion succeed. As previously noted, a pro-Persian faction simmered within Athens, poised to answer Hippias's call to arms, eager to see him restored to power. The pro-Persian conspiracy. As the Persian forces advanced towards Greece, the Greek city-states were mired in disarray. Athens, in particular, was beset by political infighting, compounded by a lingering animosity towards Sparta, which threatened to undermine any unified resistance. The armies of the Persian Empire, the largest the world had ever seen, descended upon a collection of small, fragmented city-states whose military prowess had yet to be truly tested. The scales of fortune appeared heavily tipped in favor of the Persians. To the Persians, this was a frontier problem. To the Greek city-states, it was life or death. The Athenian military system was characterized by its division into 10 tribal contingents, each under the command of a strategos with overarching leadership, vested in a pulmark, a structure that, while decentralized, allowed for flexibility in command. As the Persian forces drew near, the mantle of the pulmark rested on Callimachus, while among the strategoi was Miltiades, the seasoned and wily commander whose tactical acumen would soon be tested. When the Persian fleet traversed the Aegean and launched an assault on Eritrea, the Athenians astutely deduced the broader strategic intent of the invaders. Datis, the commander of the Persian fleet, sought to lure the Athenian forces out of their city by compelling them to march to Eritrea's defense. This stratagem aimed to either annihilate the Greek army in open battle or circumvent it entirely, enabling a direct assault on an undefended Athens. On September 9th, 490 BC, the Athenians dispatched an urgent plea for Spartan aid, only to be disheartened by the news that religious observances, a sacred festival, would delay the Spartans' army until a full moon, slated for the night of somewhere along September 20th to 21st. As the siege of Eretria unfolded, the Athenians advanced their forces northward, maintaining a cautious proximity to Athens. Miltiades, employing his keen strategic insight, convinced the other 9 generals to engage the Persians at Marathon. The Athenians girded themselves for a determined defense, aware that the fate of their city, and perhaps all of Greece, hung in the balance. Thus, for a time, Athens stood isolated, bereft of immediate external support. Now, the precise strength of the Persian force remains a matter of historical conjecture, yet contemporary estimates suggest it comprised approximately 25,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry. Datis, the Persian commander, delegated a portion of this contingent to Artaphernes, while leading the remainder to the Bay of Marathon, situated some 25 miles northeast of Athens. There, Datis disembarked his forces, which likely numbered between 12,000 and 15,000, onto an expansive plain called Marathon. The Athenians, in response, mustered their army of roughly 10,000 hoplites and secured the advantageous high ground on the plain's western edge. Their ranks were soon bolstered by the arrival of 1,000 warriors from Plataea, a steadfast ally of Athens. For 8 tense days, the two armies remained in a deadlock, each side unwilling to cede the initiative. The Greeks, well aware of the defensive superiority afforded by their elevated position, hesitated to engage in open combat. Conversely, the Persians, despite their numerical advantage, were reluctant to assault the fortified Athenian lines. Within the Athenian command council, a vigorous debate ensued over the strategic merits of immediate action versus cautious inaction. On the 9th day, disquieting news reached the Athenians. Eretria had fallen to the Persians, signaling that reinforcements from Asia Minor would soon bolster the enemy's ranks. A schism emerged among the Athenian generals. Half advocated for a defensive posture, awaiting the arrival of the Spartan army, widely regarded as the finest warriors in Greece. Miltiades, however, presented a compelling case against delay. Acutely aware of a faction within Athens that preferred appeasement, the conspiracy, which would entail capitulating to Persian demands and reinstating the exiled tyrant Hippias, Miltiades asserted that immediate action was imperative. A swift victory, he contended, would preempt any political betrayal from within. The pivotal vote rested with Callimachus, the Archon general, who ultimately sided with Miltiades. On or around September 21st, Miltiades took decisive action, arraying the Athenian army in battle formation on the plain of Marathon. This plain, flanked by treacherous marshlands and divided by the Charadra stream, provided a natural arena for the forthcoming confrontation. Significantly, the formidable Persian cavalry, against which the Greeks possessed no comparable force, was conspicuously absent, having likely been led to the northern marsh for watering. With the Persian cavalry stationed more than a mile distance and separated by the swiftly flowing Charadra, the Greeks saw an opportunity to compel a decisive engagement on the southern sector of the plain before the cavalry could regroup. The Greek forces were arrayed across a front nearly a mile in width, mirroring the deployment of the Persian infantry. Miltiades, in a calculated maneuver, thinned the center of his line to extend its breadth while reinforcing the flanks. The Greeks adopted their traditional phalanx formation, a dense grouping of spearmen typically arranged in 8 ranks. On this day, however, the center was deliberately reduced to 4 ranks deep, while the flanks were strengthened to 8 ranks, with some sources suggesting as many as 12 ranks. Though the two forces were nearly equivalent in numerical strength, the Greeks recognized that their success hinged on the swiftness of their assault, aiming to neutralize the Persian archers, the most formidable component of the enemy's army. The Greek line descended methodically from its elevated position, advancing in parallel toward the Persian ranks, who were pressed against the shoreline. At a distance of approximately 200 yards, just within the effective range of the Persian archers, the Greeks suddenly accelerated into a full charge. This unexpected burst of speed disrupted the archers' aim and minimized the duration of exposure to their deadly volleys. This sudden last-minute charge was so innovative and revolutionary that on some of the headstones left by those who died years after Marathon, who survived the battle, had simply written, "We ran." And they all knew, who passed by, that this was a soldier that fought at Marathon. We ran. Whether by strategic decision or fortuitous happenstance, the Greek flanks were the first to make contact with the Persian line, causing a pronounced curvature in the center. Seizing upon this opportunity, the Persians launched a counterattack, which succeeded in breaking through the weakened Greek center, forcing it into a temporary retreat. Concurrently, the success of the Greek flanks, which enveloped and pressured the Persian wings, forced the Persian flanks to fall back inward. As the Persian center pursued the withdrawing Greek forces, the Athenian center regrouped on higher ground and launched a resolute counteroffensive. This maneuver sent the Persian center reeling back into the disordered ranks of their own collapsing flanks, triggering a widespread rout of the entire Persian force. The Persian cavalry, which might have reversed the outcome, failed to muster in time. By the moment they were alerted and ready for engagement, the battle was already lost. The remnants of the Persian army fled in disarray to their ships, abandoning behind them, as chronicled by the historian Herodotus, 6,400 dead Persians, 7 ships destroyed. The Athenian casualties were remarkably light, with only 192 warriors fallen. Despite the resounding nature of their victory, the Athenians were afforded no respite to revel in their triumph. Artaphernes was en route from Eritrea, and Datis still commanded a formidable contingent of men and ships. Thus the Athenian army, mindful of the continuing threat, hastened from Marathon, marching through the night to return to Athens. As anticipated, the Persians, having regrouped, set sail for the city. Yet upon their arrival the following day, confronted by the sight of the Athenian forces arrayed in readiness, the same that were there at Marathon, the Persians abandoned any plans for an assault and turned back to Asia. The Spartans, arriving belatedly only to discover that the pivotal battle had already concluded. Upon learning of the Athenian victory, they marched to Marathon to survey the aftermath and the slain Persian soldiers. Recognizing the magnitude of this Athenian achievement, the Spartans offered their praise before commencing their return to Sparta. The Athenians, meanwhile, gathered their 192 fallen comrades and interred them in a common grave, the burial mound becoming a lasting monument on the Marathon plain, forever commemorating the valor of those who fought. According to legend, Phidippides, an Athenian herald, ran from the battlefield at Marathon to Athens, where he proclaimed the victory before succumbing to exhaustion and death. In reality, it was Philippides who had been dispatched earlier in the month to seek Spartan assistance, covering an astounding 150 miles in just 2 days. The purported run from Marathon to Athens after the battle, however, is likely apocryphal. Nonetheless, this legend provides the foundation for the modern marathon race, which is said to approximate the distance he traversed to deliver his momentous message. While the Greek victory at Marathon was not definitive, as it did not permanently repel the Persian threat, who returned a decade later, only to suffer a more crushing defeat at Salamis, it nevertheless represents a critical turning point in history. Marathon marked the zenith of Persian expansion. The empire of Darius I, which had stretched its dominion across vast territories, would advance no further. Darius did not live to witness another attempt at conquest, passing away in 486 BCE. The subsequent campaign against Greece was thus spearheaded by his successor, Xerxes I. Moreover, Marathon heralded a shift in the broader geopolitical momentum. Although the Persians had previously faced a setback against the Scythians, the latter had not capitalized on their victory. The Greeks, in contrast, utilized their triumph at Marathon as a launchpad for future ascendancy on the world stage. Having never before contended with a formidable military adversary, the Greeks established themselves at Marathon as a force to be reckoned with. Perhaps more crucially, the victory instilled within them a newfound psychological fortitude, one that ensured they no longer viewed the Persian military with the trepidation they once had. When the second round of conflict commenced a decade later, the Greeks met their foes with resolute confidence, rather than an overawed deference. As the eminent military historian J.F.C. Fuller astutely observes, the victory at Marathon, quote, endowed the victors with a faith in their destiny, which was to endure for 3 centuries, during which Western culture was born. Marathon was the birth cry of Europe.